Canberra now, the Shadow Agriculture and Resources Minister Joel Fitzgibbon joins us live now in the studio. You got a little bit waylaid, but we forgive you for that. We completely understand. Now, you had a little bit of a Barney with Barnaby Joyce in the corridor, which we all just saw live. But let's go back to this policy announced at the weekend. Zero net emissions by 2050. How are you going to achieve that, Joel Fitzgibbon?
Well, first of all, Laura, I knew you wouldn't mind me being a little bit late to give you a bit of theatre in the corridors of Parliament House. The point is that Barnaby Joyce just now could not provide any cogent argument or facts or figures to support his political posturing. Look, zero net emissions is in many ways a conservative ambition. It's one which is shared by all the state premiers, including Gladys Berejiklian in New South Wales, shared by the Business Council of Australia, shared by the National Farmers Federation, Meat and Livestock Australia. So we're in BHP, BP, Santos, you name it. We're in pretty good company, and I just pointed out in the corridors that I've got a vineyard in my electorate, and there are others, operating on the basis of zero net emissions or carbon neutrality as we speak. So this is very doable. It's about concentrating just as much on absorbing greenhouse gas emissions back out of the atmosphere as we do concentrating on reducing emissions. It's common sense. People want us to act, Laura, but they want us to act in a way which doesn't do harm to the economy or jobs, including in the coal mining sector. And we can do this. And it's time that Barnaby Joyce and others put their weapons down and worked with all those organisations I've mentioned, including Gladys Berejiklian, and just got this done. It can be done.
Sure, it can be done, but the question is, what is the cost? And you did take a more ambitious policy to the last election. It didn't work out so well for the Labor Party. So are you going to tell us what the cost is this time?
Well, we'll make some announcements. So we're 2 years out from the election, Laura, and look, we're going to go out to all those entities I just mentioned, including the big companies like BHP, BP, Santos, who have made this commitment, and ask them how a future Labor government can help them meet their aspirations. Now, that's a pretty sensible... You don't think these companies are mischievously making these commitments with no intention of ever following through. Of course they are genuine and they want to hit carbon neutrality, and they'll need government guidance, government assistance, and we're determined to do it in a way that doesn't cost jobs. I mean, they don't want the measures costing them jobs in their industry either.
Can this be done without the loss of any coal jobs, though?
I believe it can, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Paris, signed by Malcolm Turnbull, requires us to account for the emissions, our emissions here in Australia, not emissions coming from our coal when it's burnt overseas. And as Anthony Albanese pointed out, just as cars manufactured in Japan aren't responsible for the emissions they put out when they're driven in Europe. So these are the rules Malcolm Turnbull signed us up to, and demand for both our coking and thermal coal will remain strong for many decades to come. And places like my own Hunter Valley and Central Queensland and other places will continue to fill that demand for many decades to come, continuing to make us great foreign exchange so we can pay for all of our imports, and of course maintaining jobs in the coal mining industry.
Well, it sounds like you're going to be putting a lot of focus on offsetting emissions so that you don't lose some of those coal jobs. You are taking great personal risk here, I would argue, given the warning signs you got from your electorate at the last election. You must have some idea about how you're going to achieve this, what kind of measures you will take to offset. Can you give us just one?
Well, first of all, leadership is about doing the right thing and have the capacity both to play your role in developing the right policy and taking your people with you. And I'm very confident in our capacity to do so. But you asked me about a couple of offsets. First, there are the obvious existing. You know, we've just lost a lot of our forest estate in bushfires. So while we used to have an ambition or a hope of planting 1 billion new trees, we now need to plant about 2 billion
Sounds like direct
new
action.
trees. And this can be done today. This government refuses, Laura, to remove a thing called the water rule, which restricts investment in our plantation estate and therefore is retarding jobs in our plantation estate. In addition to that, is retarding our capacity to absorb more carbon from the atmosphere. Every farmer in this country, Laura, if this is done smartly, could be earning carbon credits from changing farming practices or by letting the big forestry operators to plant trees where they can on their own properties. This is a great buffer to drought.
All right, well,
Laura,
you've got a 2050 target.
In the same way.
And just quickly...
Can I just say, there are also emerging marine-based technologies for absorbing carbon as well. You know, some of these things are yet unknown, Laura, but people are working on them. And, you know, we're talking about 2050. We've got plenty of time both to develop and embrace these new technologies.
OK, just quickly on the 2030 target, you had previously suggested that the Labor Party should just match what the coalition has in place for 2030, and that is 26 to 28% reduction on 2005 levels. Do you still believe that should be what Labor adopts?
What I was doing, Laura, is making the rhetorical point that we're at that point in opposition for another 3 years.
So is it still rhetorical, or does that mean you've lost the argument internally?
No, I'm going to answer the question, Laura. My point was we can sit back and accept that we can do nothing for 3 years, or find a way of putting pressure on Scott Morrison to finally do something over the course of the next 3 years. And I said, imagine if we just committed to his same target, then all the focus and pressure would be on him to demonstrate to the community how he intends to meet his 28% commitment, something he's clearly not doing. And of course, as you know, Laura, he's cheating by relying on Kyoto carryover credits, something I think every person in the community rejects, and certainly the international community is rejecting.
No carbon price either.
Well, we haven't established how we might meet these aspirations. We want to, as I said, consult all the companies and governments which have already made this commitment, and the farming organisations, to work with them over the course of the next 18 months or so to determine the best path to zero net emissions for them, and to ensure that we grow the economy and we don't forsake any jobs. And remember, Laura, there is a very large cost in not acting. There are plenty of academic reports and scientists saying just that. So let's start asking Barnaby Joyce and Scott Morrison, what is the cost of not acting? It's very significant, Laura, and it's time we put the climate wars behind us. Barnaby Joyce and others just want to make political capital out of this debate. I've been doing this for 20 years. I want a political settlement, Laura. We want to do this, do it properly, grow the economy and settle this thing for the sake of our natural environment, for the sake of our grandkids.
Well, it looks like you and Barnaby Joyce just well and truly reignited those climate wars all on your own in the corridor there. And on that note, we will have to leave it there for this morning. Thanks.
You know it's a love affair, don't you, between me and Barnaby?
Yes. Maybe love-hate, who knows. Thanks so much, Joel Fitzgibbon. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Laura.